They said her fate was sealed. One treacherous night, an all-powerful empress lay betrayed on her own palace floor. Her loyal guards fallen, her trusted allies turned against her. At the very moment her world went dark, something unbelievable happened. Suddenly, she opens her eyes in a realm of bright neon lights and roaring traffic, a modern city where skyscrapers tower higher than any palace spire. And right before her, the coldest, most ruthless CEO in the business world. Everyone says he's heartless, untouchable. But they don't know the fire blazing behind this empress's gaze. They have no idea that she once commanded armies, and that she's about to transform this icy magnate into the clingiest husband ever. Curious how she pulls it off? Trust me, you won't want to miss this. A sharp beep of medical devices broke through the haze. Lu Qingqi, eyes fluttering, opened them to an unfamiliar bed, cool white sheets, and the harsh glow of overhead lights. Yun Ting stood at the foot of the bed, arms crossed, his sleek modern suit entirely at odds with his hard, narrowed gaze.
What underworld is this? Have we died together?
Her voice sounded alien to her own ears. Where were the marble pillars of the palace? The breathless quiet of centuries past? At her question, the man's dispassionate look faltered, with the barest flicker of concern. Yun Ting, irritated but worried.
Stop pretending, Lu Yao. You got into a car accident. The doctor says you might be confused. Do you understand me at all?
In that moment, Lu Qingqi's mind spun. Lu Yao, who was that? She felt as though her past, her name, even her own identity had been swept away in a swirl of time. Then came the staggering truth. She, the renowned master craftsman of Daxia, was inhabiting another woman's body in an utterly foreign era. Her husband, the cold and powerful Yun Ting, tried to push divorce papers into her hands. In confusion, she refused to sign, partly out of survival instinct, partly because something in his eyes, though he seemed distant, reminded her of the crown prince she had so desperately loved. At his mention of separation, her anger flared, surprising him.
Divorce me if you dare. I have faced death to protect what I cherish. This piece of paper means nothing.
Her commanding tone drew startled glances from hospital staff. The modern doctors whispered that she was suffering from amnesia and delusions, but all Lu Qingqi knew was that she had once vowed to protect Yun Ting in the old world. Perhaps she would do so again here, if this truly was the same soul reborn in a new time. Before the dazed empress of another time could steady herself, they were swept off to another confrontation. Yun Ting's powerful grandmother, revered as the old lady of the family, in Lu Qingqi's mind, more like the Empress Dowager, arrived with regal bearing. A swirl of confusion and clashing personalities soon engulfed the lavish mansion that Yun Ting called home. Painted in crisp modern lines and bristling with advanced technology, it was alien to Lu Qingqi. But one aspect felt familiar: the swirling politics, the simmering feuds, and the relentless fight for power in the household. Moments later, a scheming young woman, Shu Qin, approached with a pitiful smile, vying for Yun Ting's attention. Wholly unimpressed, Lu Qingqi confronted her in front of everyone. A volley of angry words flew, and Shu Qin complained of being struck by Lu Qingqi. Shu Qin, feigning innocence.
Brother Yun Ting, she hit me first. I only pushed her away. If she's not happy with you, can't she just let me have you?
He may not like me, but I refuse to walk away. Don't you dare pry him from me.
A single defiant slap across Shu Qin's face sealed the moment. Onlookers might have believed this new Lu Yao had changed overnight, suddenly fearless and poised. Yun Ting watched, uncertain whether to be impressed or concerned. At dinner in that dazzling modern dining room, tensions boiled over again. Lu Qingqi demanded that a meddlesome maid not sit at their table, an unexpected show of dominance from someone who, in the household's memory, had always been meek.
Lu Yao, have you had enough? You're pushing people too far.
Yet the old lady quietly nodded her approval, amused by her granddaughter-in-law's spirited approach. The older woman had always hoped Lu Yao would learn to stand tall in the family. And indeed, with her iron will, born from her life as an imperial craftswoman and once crown princess, Lu Qingqi showed no signs of backing down. Soon after, a grand fashion show hosted by Yunting's prestigious Taichu group loomed. Attended by the city's elite, it was poised to showcase exquisite modern designs on the runway. Xu Qin, sly and calculating, turned up, hoping to dethrone Lu Qingqi in everyone's eyes. Lu Qingqi, still grappling with how these modern events worked, ended up as a last-minute stand-in for the absent finale model, a perfect chance for Xu Qin to sabotage her. Indeed, Xu Qin tried to tamper with the outfit in secret, hoping to destroy Lu Qingqi's reputation when she appeared before the cameras. Yet, as the lights dimmed and music thrummed, a poised figure emerged under the runway spotlight. In the glimmer of swirling colors and shimmering fabric, Lu Qingqi's regal bearing from her past life took over. She commanded the stage with a confidence that took everyone's breath away, including Yun Ting, who had never seen his wife radiate such potent elegance. At the show's crescendo, the sabotage struck. The lights malfunctioned, and her garment threatened to tear. But she handled it with the dignified calm of an empress. There was no panic, just a swift, graceful improvisation. The guests applauded wildly. Yun Ting softly to Lu Qingqi afterward.
You didn't embarrass me at all. Actually, it was remarkable.
Though his words were sparse, his eyes glowed with admiration. Deep down, he felt a strange stirring, recalling hints of something familiar he couldn't name. Her sudden transformation, her unwavering courage. Could it be the same soul he had known before, across time? A swirl of rumors erupted. Was this truly the same gentle, unremarkable Lu Yao the city knew, or was she someone entirely different? That very night, after the show, Yun Ting was involved in a car accident. Word spread that he had been distracted, nearly driving himself into fatal harm. In her new body and new life, Lu Qingqi rushed to his side in the hospital, anger and worry warring on her face. Lu Qingqi, breathless.
Yun Ting, can you hear me? I'm here. Don't scare me again.
Relief washed over her when she found him alive, though injured. He might be cold and distant, but she felt the old stirrings of love and loyalty. From the foot of his hospital bed, doctors declared he'd need stitches and time to recover. She immediately volunteered to stitch his wound, showing exceptional skill no one expected. With a confident hand, she carefully sutured the gash, ignoring the amazed stares of the medical staff. Yun Ting, in pain yet impressed.
You can really do this? Where on earth did you learn?
Lu Qingqi, firm but gentle.
I studied all sorts of methods in my hometown. Just be still and trust me.
Despite the suspicious looks and murmurs about ancient knowledge, her quick, precise work astonished everyone. Yun Ting, though wary, found himself oddly comforted by her presence. Somewhere in his heart, gratitude mixed with a hint of awe he'd never expected to feel again. But safety was fleeting. At the family mansion, Yun Ting's scheming stepmother materialized, brandishing scorn toward Lu Qingqi. The stepmother demanded divorce and insisted that Yun Ting's fortune be redirected to her favored son, Yun Qi. She mocked Lu Qingqi's every word, disbelieving that this once docile woman could suddenly be so sharp-tongued. Stepmother, sneering.
You shrew, how dare you speak to an elder this way? I'll teach you manners. Kneel down.
You call yourself an elder, yet you've never shown proper kindness. Loving mother, filial children. Hasn't anyone ever taught you that respect must be mutual?
The stepmother raged, but the old lady's presence again shielded Lu Qingqi. The old matriarch placed unwavering trust in her grandson and granddaughter-in-law, telling the stepmother to leave, reminding her that she had no authority in Yun Ting's own home. Meanwhile, Xu Qin, who had once tried to sabotage Lu Qingqi, brewed new plots from the shadows. Nonetheless, a fleeting peace settled, until a lavish jewelry auction was announced. Yun-Ting planned to attend, and once more, those hungering for his wealth and downfall swarmed like vultures around the event. With her keen eye for craftsmanship, Lu Qingqi swiftly identified a priceless Eastern pearl as a counterfeit, saving Yun-Ting from investing a colossal sum in worthless goods. This further mystified everyone. How had Lu Yao, who once showed no interest in antiquities, become so astute an expert? In private corners, whispers grew, yet Yun-Ting's respect for her only deepened, as she gracefully outwitted the con artists and even put a scheming cousin in her place.
I've never seen you like this before. There are times you almost remind me of someone else, but I can't place who.
She gave him a knowing look, choosing to keep her secrets locked behind a soft smile. With each passing day, the mansion's corridors reminded Lu Qingqi of the palace she once roamed in her past life. Where once she might have embroidered quietly in some corner, she now took charge as if born to the role. Staff began to call her Madam with genuine deference. Even adversaries saw they could not push her around. On a whim, she cooked a grand meal, dishes reminiscent of royal fare from old Daxia. Yun-Ting tasted each with a mixture of surprise and delight. She teased him for not knowing her hidden talents, while he tried to hide how deeply her cooking struck a chord. In the background, the powerful Taichu group soared on the stock market, partly thanks to Lu Qingqi's presence on a hit dance competition show. She had performed an ethereal, palace-inspired dance routine, mesmerizing viewers and single-handedly boosting the company's brand. The moment the music started, she'd transformed into a regal figure from ancient times, spinning gracefully, every gesture radiating timeless elegance. No one could look away. Host announcing proudly,
And the champion is Lu Yao, such remarkable talent and style.
Despite the applause and the cameras flashing, somewhere backstage, treacherous eyes watched. Jealousy and greed conspired against her, namely from Shu Qin, who vowed revenge after being humiliated time and again. Others, like Yun-Ting's stepmother, had their own hidden agendas. The stage was set for yet another clash. Thus concluded the opening acts of this tangled saga. Lu Qingqi, once a famed master craftsman in an imperial court lost to time, now found herself forging a path in an ultramodern world. Her unwavering loyalty to Yun-Ting remained, though this time his cold, aloof persona threatened to keep them apart if she could not thaw his heart. Powerful adversaries swirled around, each driven by greed and ambition, each eager to bring them down. Would ancient cunning triumph over modern schemes? Could the unconditional devotion of their past lives bloom anew in an era that measured worth in business shares and cunning deals? Chapter 1 closes with these questions blazing, paving the way for the fierce battles of heart, mind, and power that would follow. A bright morning sun filtered through the immense windows of Taichu Group's headquarters, bathing the marble floors in dappled light. The sweeping lobby bustled with visitors eager to sign new collaboration deals, investors clamoring for a word with the company's upper brass, and staff members hurrying to keep operations afloat. Yet beneath this polished surface, unease crept like a silent undercurrent. For all Taichu's outward success, much of it newly fueled by the rising star of Lu Qingqi, known to the modern world as Lu Yao, subtle cracks had begun to form. Days had passed since Lu Qingqi dazzled everyone at the fashion show, captivating audiences with her regal bearing and skilled performance. Shares of Taichu soared. Magazines ran front-page articles dubbing her the hidden gem of the design world. She acquired a growing fan base, enthralled by her unusual blend of classical elegance and modern flair. All seemed well. Yet, behind the scenes, signs of sabotage multiplied. Colleagues whispered about missing or altered files. Hush-money payments emerged in the company's expense logs. The very sketches that cemented Lu Qingqi's fame disappeared from secure archives, only to resurface improperly stored or suspiciously torn. More than one staff member noticed an unsettling pattern. Each mishap circled back to the orbit of Shu Qin, the once favored secretary, now demoted but not yet dismissed from Yun Ting's personal network. High above the bustling lobby, in a conference room framed by glass walls, Yun Ting rested his hands on the table's polished surface. He shifted slightly, legs still in recovery from his recent injuries. Despite the formal suit and the confident facade he wore for the press, a subtle tension strained his expression.
Do we have anything linking these incidents to Shu Qin or to others outside the company?
Seated around the table, Taichu's senior staff exchanged glances. Gu Si, Yun Ting's trusted assistant, spoke quietly.
Sir, we found hints of financial transactions between Shu Qin and parties affiliated with the Yun family, specifically your half-brother Yun Qi.
At that name, the room seemed to darken. Everyone recalled the heated past. Yun Ting's complicated ties to the extended Yun clan, especially the unscrupulous Yun Qi, who had long sought a share, if not all, of the family's power and wealth. The old stepmother, unwavering in her favoritism toward Yun Qi, had stirred endless trouble. A hush fell as the staff awaited Yun Ting's decision.
Double security everywhere, and keep a particular eye on...
He paused, glancing at Lu Qingxi, who had entered to deliver a fresh design portfolio. She felt the weight of his gaze and offered a comforting half-smile. Even if she were not physically powerful enough to guard him on every front, her mind whirred like a master strategist. She would help him face whatever new trial loomed. Far from the glass-walled meeting rooms, a newly furnished studio space awaited Lu Qingxi. It brimmed with spools of rare fabrics, shining boxes of gems, delicately crafted wire frames, and a large drafting table stacked high with blank paper. Taichu's leadership had insisted on giving their rising star the best resources possible. But she saw it as more than just a workspace. Here, she felt echoes of her old life in Daxia, the hush of her private workshop, the sweet tang of molten metal as she hammered new filigree, the flicker of an oil lamp guiding her slender brush over pristine parchment. Whenever she touched this era's modern tools, a pang of nostalgia for the imperial palace tugged at her heart. Standing at the drafting table, she spread her designs. Her signature style, delicate lines reminiscent of dragon motifs and swirling phoenix feathers, remained deeply rooted in Daxia's aesthetics. Somehow that antiquated grandeur melded seamlessly with the minimalist trends of modern couture. If the world found it astonishing, it was because no one else had truly lived that era in their flesh and blood.
It feels as though each piece links the past to the future, just as I myself do.
She brushed a fingertip across a half-finished sketch, imagining how its final form might shimmer around a model's neck or wrist. Then, an unexpected voice jarred her from her reverie.
Still lost in your fantasies, I see. An artist's daydreams are a dime a dozen, or so I've heard.
At the entry to the studio stood Shu Qin, arms folded smugly. Dressed in high-end fashion, she looked every bit the corporate predator despite her recent demotion. Tension coiled in the air.
I'm focusing on important work, Miss Shu, but you're free to watch me daydream from the door.
What might have been a routine exchange bristled with underlying hostility. Shu Qin lingered a moment longer, eyes roaming over the precious stones and delicate design sketches that had made Lu Qingxi a phenomenon. Then, with a withering glare, she turned on her heel and stalked away. In the shadows of a remote parking structure, far from Taichu's glimmer, Shu Qin joined the figure of Yun Qi by a black luxury sedan. She cast a wary glance over her shoulder, ensuring they hadn't been followed. The faint hum of traffic overhead only accented the hush in their corner of secrecy. Yun Qi, impatient.
Well, is it done?
Not yet. The woman's either too lucky or too cunning. Every time I try to catch her off guard, she outmaneuvers me.
A glimmer of frustration flashed in Yun Qi's eyes. He had grown tired of hearing of Lu Qingqi's triumphs, of her hold over Yun Ting, and of the old matriarch's unexpected devotion toward her. If he could not wrestle power from Yun Ting within the Yun family, then perhaps destroying Taichu's public image and humiliating Yunting's new wife would be the next best blow.
Perhaps your methods aren't harsh enough. Didn't you say we had a file of evidence to discredit her designs? When do we release it?
Soon. But forging claims of plagiarism or theft only goes so far. If we want to bring her down completely, we need more. We need her reputation in shambles. Maybe a scandal, or a violent act that tarnishes Taichu's name.
She paused, remembering her many thwarted schemes, from sabotaging runway outfits to tampering with music tracks. Always that woman emerged unscathed, even glowing brighter afterward. The thought twisted her insides with envy and rage.
Then perhaps we escalate. I have men who owe me favors. If necessary, we'll put Lu Yao in real danger, something that no media spin can fix.
A hush settled as they locked eyes in a silent pact. Already, plans to orchestrate a devastating scandal for Taichu and especially for Lu Qingqi were taking shape. Despite the outward positivity surrounding her work, Lu Qingqi began noticing small changes. A baffling rumor circulated that her designs were not her own, that she must have stolen them from some obscure foreign brand, since, after all, how could a nobody create such groundbreaking pieces overnight? Suspicious emails arrived from industry contacts, vaguely asking if she wanted to license her sketches. Her phone buzzed incessantly with cryptic messages warning her to come clean before it was too late. Late one evening, she sat with Yun Ting in his private study, the two of them poring over the latest batch of fan mail, business proposals, and hidden threats. Starlight glowed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the tension in their faces.
They're stepping up the attack. Even the staff whisper that I've made enemies on the board.
Yun Ting, leaning on a cane for stability, let out a long sigh. He too recognized that the situation was more complex than mere gossip. The shadow of the Yun family's power struggle swirling around Yunqi was all too familiar, and Shu Qin's cunning only worsened matters.
We'll hold a public press conference. I'll give you the platform to clarify everything. Let the entire industry see the truth. If we stay quiet, these rumors will keep festering.
At his suggestion, her gaze flickered with uncertainty. She, who had once ruled an imperial workshop in Daxia with unwavering self-confidence, now found herself in a world obsessed with public perception, tabloids, and sensational headlines. But if confronting the rumors head-on would protect Yun Ting and Taichu, then she would do so without hesitation.
Very well. Let me prove myself. If they accuse me of faking my skills, I'll show them what true craftsmanship looks like.
Yun Ting's lips curved into a faint smile, admiration warming his usually stoic features. He brushed a hand gently over hers, as if in apology for dragging her into this battlefield. She squeezed his fingers back, determined to fight shoulder to shoulder. When the scheduled day arrived, cameras and reporters from across the city gathered in Taichu's auditorium. Rumors had reached a boiling point. Talk of stolen designs, references to shady deals, and allegations that Yun Ting only shielded Lu Yao because of personal bias rather than evidence. At the center of all this speculation, Lu Qingqi prepared to make her statement. Grandma, the old matriarch, also came, leaning on a carved walking stick for support. Her features were unreadable, yet behind that calm lay a fierce protectiveness for her granddaughter-in-law. Meanwhile, staff members whispered anxiously about whether this press conference would salvage Taichu's stock or sink it further. As the stage lights brightened, Lu Qingqi took her place at a podium. Notes in hand, heart pounding, Yun Ting stood beside her, cane in one hand, the other resting lightly on her shoulder in silent support.
Thank you for coming. I want to address once and for all the allegations that my designs are not my own.
She explained her design process, showing video clips of her at work in the studio, forging prototypes, selecting gems, and sketching out concepts inspired by ancient motifs. Initially, the audience seemed receptive. Yet, halfway through her presentation, a commotion erupted at the auditorium doors. Shu Qin strode in, flanked by two individuals carrying large file folders. The media stirred with excitement, sensing drama.
Pardon my interruption, but I have newly uncovered evidence. If Mrs. Liu Yao's designs truly belong to her, why is it that we found older prototypes, identical prototypes, on foreign websites?
Gasps rippled through the onlookers. Whispers of suspicion surfaced anew. In the stage lights, a malicious gleam danced in Shu Qin's eyes. Lu Qingqi froze. For a moment, she recalled that day in the imperial palace when she was forced at knife point to forge a treacherous new seal. Betrayal from all sides, a burning sense of injustice. Now, centuries later, that feeling stung anew, an enemy cunning enough to produce proof that threatened her name and that of Taichu. Before panic could truly seize control, Yunting stepped forward, motioning for the lights to dim. A large screen flickered to life above the stage, showing side-by-side comparisons of the alleged foreign prototypes and Lu Qingxi's sketches. At first glance, they did seem strikingly alike. Murmurs intensified, but as Yunting magnified certain details on each design, a hush descended. With clear precision, he pointed out minuscule differences. Line thickness in the phoenix tail swirl, gemstone settings turned the opposite way, filigree patterns that formed hidden characters reminiscent of ancient script.
Observe the intricacy. In these so-called foreign prototypes, the metal settings are cruder, the lines forced. Compare them with the refined curvature in the authentic sketches from our studio. It's evident these copies were generated after the fact.
Stunned silence followed. Even the press could see that the so-called original versions were flawed duplicates. Light applause broke out. Confidence surged through the crowd. Panicking, Shu Qin tried to interrupt, but Yunting continued, revealing digital timestamps from Taichu's server logs. A wave of relief spread over staff who'd grown tired of the relentless rumors. All eyes turned back to Shu Qin, who stood rigid, caught in her own net.
This is no proof. We only have your word for the server logs. Anyone could falsify those.
Her protest died when Grandma rose, tapping her walking stick twice against the tile floor. Grandma, soft but commanding.
Shu Qin, enough. You have deceived us long enough. I've seen the authenticity of Liu Yao's craft with my own eyes, beyond any reasonable doubt.
At that, the crowd parted respectfully, unnerved by the old matriarch's presence. But Yunqi, lurking near the exit, was not about to let their carefully woven plan unravel so easily. Having bribed a security guard, he signaled a group of men to stir chaos, hoping the sudden clamor might distract from Taichu's triumphant reveal. Within seconds, shouts erupted in the aisles, cameras toppled, and several men rushed the stage. If you were the main character, what would you do in this situation? Comment below. Gu Ce and Taichu's security team leaped into action. The ensuing tussle sent chairs clattering, journalists screaming, and the overhead lights swinging. In the melee, two men made a desperate grab for Lu Qingqi, recognizing her as the target of their mission. She ducked their first lunge, surprising them with her lightning reflexes, reminiscent of a person trained in palace close combat. But modern bodies had their limits, and they soon cornered her near the stage's edge. Seeing her in peril, Yunting, Cain forgotten, tried to intervene. Pain shot through his injured leg, and he stumbled, only to be caught by Gu Ce at the last second. For an agonizing moment, it seemed that the intruders would spirit Lu Qingqi away. Then she struck out with a sudden, fierce move, stepping on one attacker's foot while driving an elbow into the other's chest. They both reeled back, stunned that this supposedly delicate designer possessed such skill. Cameras flashed wildly, capturing what was part attack, part dance. Press and staff parted in alarm, stumbling out of the way. In the confusion, a battered Shu Qin slipped out of view, presumably to find Yunqi or flee before the police arrived. Finally, the hall erupted in applause. Security subdued the intruders. The stage resembled a battlefield, with toppled chairs, broken cameras, and scattered papers. Despite it all, Lu Qingqi stood tall, breathing hard but unbowed, golden stage lights illuminating the resolve in her eyes. Yun Ting struggled through the crowd, holding onto Guche's arm for balance until he reached her side. He pressed a trembling hand to her shoulder, silently confirming she was uninjured. The mutual relief in their gazes spoke louder than words.
Lu Yao, no, Lu Qingxi, are you all right?
She gave a faint smile, nodding, unsure if he meant to address her by her true ancient name or if it was merely a slip. Meanwhile, her heart thundered in her chest, both from the physical scuffle and from the near disclosure of her real identity in front of so many people. Under the watchful eye of the cameras, Grandma approached. Her expression was both proud and relieved. She placed a comforting hand on her granddaughter-in-law's arm, then turned to the journalists with an air of finality.
I have seen enough. You witnessed who orchestrated this nonsense. You all saw how she defended herself. If this is not proof of her integrity, I don't know what is.
This official recognition from the matriarch sealed the matter in many minds. Murmurs of admiration and respect rippled through the audience. Then the police arrived, leading away the subdued attackers. Some onlookers whispered that the entire fiasco had been orchestrated by Yun Qi and Shu Qin. Others clucked their tongues at the audacity of trying to kidnap or injure a woman on camera. By the time the auditorium began to clear, the scandal had effectively turned against the conspirators. Days later, the story in the press wasn't of plagiarism or stolen designs, but rather of an attempted assault and sabotage at a legitimate press conference. Even the tabloids showed sympathy toward Lu Yao and outrage at the men behind the attack. Taichu Group's reputation soared again, with many praising Yun Ting for defending his wife. Although Shu Qin and Yun Qi vanished to dodge the fallout, their grand scheme had collapsed. The law would likely catch up to them, and as for Lu Qingqi, she continued her quiet life at Yun Ting's side, forging new designs, comforting staff shaken by the violence, and deferring to Grandma's desire for peace in the Yun household. Yet, deep within, she sensed that one final confrontation lay ahead, a confrontation that might force her to reveal that she was no mere modern designer, but an imperial craftswoman from a time centuries ago. On one crisp evening, after hectic days of damage control, Yun Ting and Lu Qingqi found themselves alone in a quiet courtyard behind the mansion. Lanterns glowed along the paths, reflecting in a serene koi pond. With the bustle of scandal behind them, if only momentarily, they stood side by side, inhaling the peaceful night air.
These last weeks have felt like another war. I almost lost you. Again.
He slipped his arm through hers gently. She gazed up at him, recalling how in the old palace she had fought assassins to save his life, how they had sworn to die together if it meant protecting their empire. Perhaps they had indeed perished once, only to be granted another chance here.
We've faced worse, my prince. I'm prepared to stand by you, in this world as well.
For a brief moment, the centuries fell away. He leaned down, pressing his forehead against hers in a gesture of profound gratitude and silent devotion. The koi pond's surface shimmered, and time seemed suspended. Neither knew exactly how their story would end. The specter of Yun Qi, the cunning stepmother, and the complexities of her own time travel secret still hovered. Yet the bond they shared felt unbreakable. If they could endure the betrayal of a royal court, once upon a time they could weather whatever modern tribulations lay in store. A crisp dawn broke over the city, painting the skyscrapers in delicate shades of lilac and gold. In the penthouse suite of Taichu Group's tower, the faint hum of traffic provided a distant soundtrack to the hush within. Lu Qingxi, recognized in the modern world as Lu Yao, stood alone by the window, coffee cup in hand, her gaze drifting over the metropolitan sprawl that had become her new kingdom. To the outside eye, her life seemed nearly perfect, beloved by the public for her brilliant designs, applauded for her courage in confronting assassins at the press conference, and protected by the steadfast loyalty of Yun Ting, the powerful CEO who had, more than once, risked everything to keep her safe. Even Grandma, matriarch of the Yun household, showered her with approval. The conspirators behind the recent sabotage, Shuqin and Yunqi, had fled, leaving behind trails of incriminating evidence. Yet, despite these victories, a persistent knot of worry lodged in her heart. She knew too well that cunning foes did not vanish so easily. And, deeper still, a question lingered. How long could she conceal her secret from the man she had once sworn to protect centuries ago in the imperial court? The fact that Grandma already knew she was truly the famed artisan Lu Qingxi from Daxia had not yet been revealed to Yun Ting in full. And, on this morning, as the first rays of daylight touched her hair, she felt the faint stirring of destiny, reminding her that the final confrontation still awaited. A week passed in tentative calm, punctuated by regular board meetings in which the newly emboldened Taichu shareholders praised Lu Qingqi's designs and management approach. Yun Ting, half smiling, watched her command the room just as a seasoned monarch would, weaving courtesy with authority. But the calm was shattered when an onslaught of fresh rumors exploded across social media. Claims surfaced that Lu Yao, the public name for Lu Qingxi, had an illicit past, that she was not who she claimed to be, and that she'd forged her very identity, complete with faked documentation. Before long, tabloids buzzed with scandalous headlines, and talk shows speculated wildly about this mystery woman who had captured Yun Ting's heart. Taichu, PR director, addressing Yun Ting in a tense briefing.
Sir, the media demands a statement. They're publishing unverified allegations that your wife doesn't even have a valid birth record. Some claim she was involved in criminal activity overseas.
Which outlet is leading the charge?
A smaller outfit, partly funded by shell companies. But they have wide social media reach. We can't rule out that Shuqin or Yunqi is behind them.
Yun Ting's jaw tightened. He dismissed the director, then sank into the silence of his executive office. This time, the attack targeted not merely business, but the very foundation of Lu Qingqi's modern existence. He realized with a pang that he, too, knew shockingly little about the official Lu Yao identity, where she'd come from before she married him. She had never offered a thorough explanation, and, to his shame, he had never demanded it. He reached for his phone, calling her.
We need to talk. Tell me you're all right.
I'm fine. Don't worry.
But in that brief exchange, he sensed her fatigue. She had known this day might come, the day that modern bureaucracy questioned her right to exist, and behind the scenes she had braced for this final test. Because the truth was, she truly had no traceable past in this era before she awakened in that hospital bed. As the media frenzy grew, Grandma summoned Lu Qingxi to a private drawing room in the Yun family's ancestral estate. The old woman's eyes glinted with firm resolve. Grandma softly.
Child, it is time. No more secrets if you are to withstand this storm.
She gestured to the tea service on a nearby table. The air was thick with the fragrance of brewed leaves, reminiscent of an ancient palace hall where courtiers once deliberated state affairs.
Yun Ting has a right to know everything, but how can I make him believe that I stepped from the past to the present?
A small smile played on Grandma's lips. She, too, had initially struggled to accept that her granddaughter-in-law was the legendary craftswoman Lu Qingxi from centuries prior, and, yet, in witnessing her skill, her calligraphy, and the uncanny memories of a royal life, Grandma had set aside disbelief.
He won't turn you away. You two share a destiny that transcends lifetimes. Speak the truth and let him decide.
Buoyed by Grandma's courage, Lu Qingqi resolved that hiding her past could only invite more malicious attacks from Yunqi and Shuqin. With each manufactured rumor, she realized her silence actually fueled suspicion. The time had arrived for an honest revelation. That night, with a hush settled over the mansion, Yun Ting found Lu Qingxi pacing in the lantern-lit courtyard. A slight breeze stirred the potted magnolias, and the distant glow of the city lights cast dancing reflections across the windows. He drew closer, cane tucked under his arm for steadiness, until they were side by side beneath the wisteria trellis. For a long moment, no words passed between them, just a shared awareness that what she was about to say could change everything.
Yun-Ting, you remember the fleeting dreams you mentioned? About a palace? About me dressed in imperial robes, protecting you at risk of my own life?
He nodded, recalling that strange surge of memories and emotions that had haunted him, especially after the kidnapping attempt. More recently, as if stirred by an ancient calling, fleeting images had resurfaced in his mind. A soaring hall draped in red silk, the flicker of torches on polished stone, the echo of steel swords, and always a woman's unwavering gaze, her eyes full of devotion, even on the brink of death.
Those were not just dreams. They were memories. I am not truly Lu Yao. I am Lu Qingxi, master craftsman of the Daxia dynasty. And you were the crown prince I pledged my life to protect. We fell together when treason destroyed our empire.
She swallowed hard, half expecting laughter or denial. Instead, Yun-Ting's expression grew taut with emotion. A swirl of fragments churned in his mind, aligning puzzle pieces. Her uncanny knowledge of ancient artistry, her talent for calligraphy that mimicked works centuries old, her unwavering loyalty that reached beyond reason. It all coalesced into a wave of realization so overwhelming he nearly staggered.
Then, it's true. I wasn't imagining it. We died that day, didn't we? And yet, here we stand.
Tears shone in her eyes, but she stood tall, nodding. She recounted the final night in the palace, the traitor's blade, her desperate attempt to spare him from mortal harm, and the swirl of darkness that engulfed them both. Somehow, fate or providence had swept them into this modern world. She had awakened first, disoriented in a hospital bed, inhabiting the identity of Lu Yao. In the hush that followed, Yun-Ting pressed his hand over hers, the trembling of his fingers betraying the depths of his feelings.
If everything is true, then it's a miracle. I only wish I'd known sooner so I could protect you from these hateful rumors.
His acceptance left her breathless with gratitude, her heart light for the first time since the memory of Daxia had surfaced. They embraced, an unspoken vow that no matter the era, no matter the trials, they would never abandon one another again. Behind the curtains of these tender moments, a far darker plan unfolded. Yun-Chi, driven to desperation by his failures, reappeared in secret. Together with Shu-Qin, he poured resources into discrediting not just Lu Qingqi, but Grandma and Yun-Ting as well. Contacts on the black market peddled rumors of forged passports, illegal family transfers, even outlandish claims that Grandma had siphoned money from the Yun estate to fund organized crime. The more bizarre the rumor, the faster it spread on social media. Their end goal remained the same: to force Taichu Group into chaos, to strip Yun-Ting of his credibility, and coerce the old lady into ceding all inheritance to Yun-Chi. And, as for Lu Qingqi, they planned a final, more lethal confrontation if her otherworldly luck continued to shield her. The next morning, under an ominous gray sky, the Yun family's ancestral estate rang with anxious voices. Shareholders, family members, and even local authorities had been called in for an emergency meeting. Yun-Chi had spread rumors that Yun-Ting, the cunning cripple, was forging documents to hide his wife's fake identity and illegally seize the estate. Now, throngs of press members and local officials crowded the grand foyer, demanding clarity. Grandma stood at the top of the main staircase, gripping her carved walking stick in a gesture reminiscent of an empress holding court. Beside her, Yun-Ting kept a steely gaze on the group below, and, at his side, Lu Qingqi wore a composed mien, like someone who had faced far greater threats in another life. Finally, Yun-Chi and Shu-Qin arrived, each wearing self-satisfied smirks. They brandished folders that allegedly contained unassailable evidence of the entire family's wrongdoing. The tension crackled as the press clamored, cameras flashed, and accusations flew back and forth.
I told you all along that my brother and this so-called Lu Yao are liars. They manipulate the old lady's affections. They intend to drain the Yun fortune for themselves. I've done the public a favor by exposing them.
She can't prove she's even a legal resident. Why should we believe her designs are genuine, let alone that she has any right to the Yun family's assets?
For a moment, it seemed the house would tip into chaos. Then, amid the clamor, a bold voice cut through the noise. Grandma nodded to a staff member, who clicked a remote. A large screen lowered from the ceiling, unveiling newly compiled evidence. With crisp clarity, records began to play. Bank statements showing massive payoffs from Yunqi's shell companies to unscrupulous individuals, hidden camera footage of Shuqin bribing security guards to tamper with Taichu files, and even an audio snippet in which Yunqi gloated about turning the press into a weapon. Gasps and murmurs swept through the crowd.
You dare accuse my grandson of deception? Look upon these accounts, see how you twisted the truth to blacken their names. And as for my granddaughter-in-law, she was forced to conceal details of her past due to the unique circumstances of her arrival.
The old lady paused, scanning the stunned faces of reporters who moments earlier had been hounding Lu Qingqi. Then, in a voice resonant with unwavering authority, she continued,
Henceforth, I formally recognize Lu Yao, Lu Qingqi, as a true member of our family. Her name is entered into our ancestral records. If anyone disputes this, let them face us in court, or challenge me directly.
A hush fell, broken only by the frantic scribbling of journalists scribbling quotes. Yunqi's smug grin faltered, sweat beading on his brow. He whipped around to Shuqin, searching for a way to salvage the moment, but it was too late. The hush gave way to frantic questioning of Yunqi and Shuqin, why they had orchestrated such vile schemes, what they hoped to gain, and how they now responded to the damning proof displayed on screen. They stammered, tried to protest. Police officers, present to monitor the emergency meeting, stepped forward to examine the evidence. Arrests seemed imminent. Suddenly, in the swell of confusion, Shuqin seized a moment of madness. Desperate to avoid exposure, she pulled out a concealed knife and lunged for Lu Qingqi, shrieking incoherently about destroying the imposter. Perhaps, in her fractured mind, if she could harm Lu Qingqi, she might seize the upper hand one last time. The crowd gasped and recoiled, but Lu Qingqi, in a flash of recollection, like an echo of the imperial palace, where she once deflected assassins, twisted aside. She grabbed Shuqin's wrist in a swift, practiced motion, forcing it downward. The blade clattered on the polished floor. Shuqin, breathless, eyes wild.
Why do you always slip away? You're nothing. I was so close to everything.
Lu Qingqi, steady voice.
That's where you went wrong. I can't be ruined by lies. And I am not alone anymore.
Within moments, the police subdued Shuqin, along with Yunqi. At last, the conspirators' downfall was sealed, leaving the onlookers to reel at the shocking turn of events. Cameras flashed in a frenzy, capturing the final image of a once powerful pair in cuffs, undone by their own malice. With Yunqi's and Shuqin's arrests, the hostility strangling Taichu group evaporated. Public sympathy surged for Yunting and Lu Qingqi, especially upon the revelation of how far their enemies had gone to smear them. The police quickly confirmed that the couple bore no fault, that each anonymous tip was part of an elaborate frame-up. In a press release, Grandma pledged to donate a portion of her personal funds to a charitable foundation supporting design students, mentioning that she wanted to honor her granddaughter-in-law's generous spirit. For the Yun family at large, it was a turning point. Old grudges lay exposed, and honest members embraced a chance to rebuild the household's legacy with genuine unity. Meanwhile, in the hush of a private hospital suite, Yun Ting finally got the official word that his leg, though still sometimes painful, would make a full recovery. No more wheelchair, no more cane. He accepted the prognosis stoically. But at his side, Lu Qingqi nearly wept with relief.
If the doctors are correct, I can walk without this cane in a month or two. Let's see if they're right.
Lu Qingqi, overjoyed. You'll be free to roam as you wish. No more pain, no more worry. He watched her, heart full, and gently brushed her cheek with his fingertips. He recalled how centuries ago, in Daxia, an imperial physician had once said something similar, that the crown prince's wound would heal. But that promise was cut short by betrayal. In this life, it seemed that they might be granted a happier destiny. At last, in the sprawling garden of the Yun family estate, a grand ceremony took place. Reporters labeled it a renewal of vows between Yun Ting and Lu Yao, but the couple shared a private understanding that it was truly the union of Crown Prince Yun Ting and Master Craftsman Lu Qingqi, forging a bond that transcended centuries. Rows of lanterns and fresh blossoms decorated the lawn. Grandma, wearing a proud smile, welcomed family, friends, and key figures from Taichu Group and beyond. Even foreign partners flew in to witness the event, curious about the romance that had captivated the city and sparked fierce loyalty among so many. When the ceremony began, a hush spread as Yun Ting walked down a petal-strewn path on his own 2 feet, testing the doctor's word. Though he moved carefully, the onlookers erupted in applause and tears. At the end of the aisle stood Lu Qingqi, her dress adorned with intricate embroidery she had fashioned herself, reminiscent of the regal patterns she once sewed for imperial ceremonies. They joined hands, gazing at one another as if the rest of the world had fallen away.
Yun Ting, do you reaffirm your commitment in sickness and in health to stand by Lu Yao?
I do.
Lu Yao, do you promise to treasure him, to share both burdens and triumphs for as long as you both live?
I do.
A silent understanding passed between them, vows that spanned not just this modern life, but the memory of a once-lost empire. The final applause roared like thunder, uniting well-wishers from distant corners of their intertwined worlds. Months later, in a sunlit workshop within the Taichu building, Lu Qingqi carefully examined a newly forged crown. It was a limited edition piece, featuring swirling gold filigree set with azure gems, reminiscent of the phoenix iconography from Daxia's palace. She smiled, placing the delicate creation onto a velvet stand, preparing it for an auction whose proceeds would support emerging artisans. Footsteps approached. She turned to see Yun Ting, now fully mobile and brimming with quiet confidence. He set aside a folder of documents to admire her craftsmanship.
Is this the final piece of your new Empress collection? The world's waiting with bated breath?
Yes. I suppose you could say it's the crowning jewel, a symbol that no matter the era, we can rise from ashes like a phoenix, and that even centuries of separation can't break our bond.
Hand in hand, they left the workshop, stepping into a future free of the shadows that once haunted them. The city's skyline shimmered beyond the windows, modern, vibrant, full of possibility. In that instant, neither of them doubted that they had claimed the destiny once snatched from them in Daxia. They would stand side by side, forging a new legacy for themselves and for Taichu, transcending the boundaries of time itself. If you enjoyed this story, there's another video on screen right now. Go ahead and give it a look for an even more astonishing tale. And don't forget, we'll have many more uplifting and dramatic stories coming your way, so make sure you subscribe to our channel. That way, you'll never miss our newest uploads.